Welcome to our channel Crime Loom, the place where true crime stories come alive.
The quiet town had never seen anything like it. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else, where doors were rarely locked and neighbors trusted each other. But that trust would soon be shattered. On a cold autumn morning, a crime occurred that would change the lives of everyone in the town forever. It started with a call to the local police. The voice on the other end was trembling, almost whispering. Something had happened at the old Henderson estate. When the officers arrived, they found a scene that sent chills down their spines. The living room was in disarray. Broken furniture, overturned chairs, and shattered glass covered the floor. At the center of the chaos lay the body of a man, later identified as Thomas Henderson, a wealthy businessman who had lived in the town all his life. Thomas was not a man without enemies. In fact, it seemed that almost everyone in his circle had a reason to want him gone. As the police began their investigation, it quickly became clear that this case would not be simple. Every lead brought more questions than answers, and every suspect had a motive that could not be ignored. The first person the investigators spoke to was Clara, Thomas's business partner. She had worked with him for years, and together they had built a small empire of local businesses. But behind the smiles and handshakes, there had been tension. Thomas had recently decided to take full control of a new project, cutting Clara out completely. She had argued with him just days before his death, her voice rising in anger as she accused him of betrayal. She claimed she wanted justice, not murder, but the investigators noted the fire in her eyes. A motive, perhaps, but was it enough? Next was Daniel, Thomas's nephew. Young and ambitious, Daniel had always felt overshadowed by his uncle. Thomas had promised to leave him a small inheritance, but Daniel had been hoping for more. The estate was vast, and Daniel had debts that no one else in the family knew about. On the night of the crime, he claimed to be at a friend's house, but his alibi was thin and unverified. His resentment was obvious to those who knew him, and some whispered that he had made veiled threats against Thomas in the past. Could a nephew really betray family for money? Then there was Margaret, Thomas's longtime secretary. Loyal, efficient, and quiet, she had been by his side for decades. But loyalty is not always a shield against greed. Margaret had discovered that Thomas had been embezzling funds from one of their companies, hiding the truth from everyone. When she confronted him, he had laughed and dismissed her concerns. Some believed she could not bear the injustice and had taken matters into her own hands. Others thought she would never harm a man she had worked with for so long. Her motive existed, but the question was whether she had the courage to act. Outside the family and office, the town itself seemed to harbor secrets. There was Peter, the neighbor, who had argued with Thomas over property boundaries. The dispute had been heated, with both men exchanging angry words. Thomas had won the lawsuit, and Peter's frustration was well known. Anger, however, does not always lead to murder, yet investigators could not ignore the possibility. The local cafe owner, Linda, also came under scrutiny. Thomas had been her biggest critic, often leaving harsh reviews and making demands that affected her business. Linda had a sharp tongue, and many had seen her storming away from arguments with Thomas. She claimed she would never hurt anyone, but sometimes the line between words and actions is blurred. Her motive was clear revenge, but her opportunity remained uncertain. As the days passed, the police worked tirelessly, piecing together statements, checking alibis, and following every clue. Yet the more they learned, the more complicated the case became. Every suspect had something to hide, and every motive seemed justifiable. It was a puzzle with pieces that didn't quite fit. Detectives began to focus on the timeline. Thomas had returned home late the night before his death. Witnesses saw lights on in the house, shadows moving through the windows. Someone had been inside, but who? Fingerprints were collected, but they were everywhere too many to make sense of immediately. Security cameras had been tampered with, adding another layer of mystery. Whoever had done this was careful, but not careful enough to erase all evidence. One breakthrough came when a small piece of jewelry was found near the scene. It belonged to Clara, the business partner. She claimed she had lost it days earlier, but the police were skeptical. They began to wonder if she had been in the house that night. Confronted with the evidence, Clara admitted she had gone to speak with Thomas, hoping to convince him to reconsider their business deal. She insisted she had left him alive and well. Could she be telling the truth, or was this part of a clever cover-up? Attention then turned to Daniel. Investigators discovered that his phone records placed him near the Henderson estate on the night of the murder. When asked, he claimed he had gone for a late-night walk to clear his head. The police did not find his explanation convincing, especially considering the timing and his financial desperation. Yet, even with this, there was still no direct proof tying him to the crime. Margaret, the secretary, had been unusually quiet during interviews, giving short, careful answers. But forensic experts found traces of her fingerprints on a broken vase at the scene. She explained it had been from an earlier visit to the house, but her story raised more questions than answers. Had she been closer to the crime than she admitted? And if so, why? As pressure mounted, the town grew anxious. Rumors spread, fingers were pointed, and no one felt safe. Every encounter became a moment of tension, and friendships were strained. People began to wonder if the crime was not just an isolated act, but a reflection of hidden resentments and secret grievances that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. Default one night, a critical witness came forward. A passerby had seen someone leaving the Henderson estate shortly after midnight. The description was vague, but it narrowed the list of suspects. Combined with forensic evidence, it started to form a clearer picture. However, the question remained, which motive had turned into action? Was it greed, jealousy, revenge, or anger? And could a motive alone explain the cold-blooded nature of the crime? In the final days of the investigation, detectives held a series of interviews that would reveal the truth. They asked pointed questions, revisited evidence, and observed reactions carefully. Finally, the threads began to connect. A combination of opportunity, motive, and behavior pointed to one person, but the revelation shocked the town. The culprit was someone no one had suspected fully, someone whose motive had been hidden beneath layers of trust and respect. When the arrest was made, the town was stunned. The person had walked among them, seemingly innocent, while planning and executing a crime that would leave a permanent mark on the community. The story of betrayal, resentment, and hidden motives became a cautionary tale about appearances and the darkness that can lurk behind familiar faces. Even after the case was closed, people continued to discuss it. How could someone with a clear motive hide it so well? How could a town with so many suspects witness the unfolding of a crime without noticing the true danger? The answers were complex, rooted in human psychology, relationships, and the choices people make when driven by need, anger, or ambition. The Henderson estate remained a reminder. Visitors passed by the empty windows, wondering about the secrets that had been revealed and those that remained hidden. For the residents, life slowly returned to normal, but the memory of the crime lingered. Everyone remembered that night when all suspects had motives, but only one had acted. It was a story that would be told for years, a chilling reminder that sometimes the truth is stranger and darker than anyone could imagine. Even now, the case serves as a lesson. Motives are everywhere, but they do not always lead to crime. And yet, when they do, the consequences are devastating. Trust is broken, relationships are strained, and the echoes of the act are felt long after the last evidence is gone. In the end, the town learned a harsh truth. Everyone may have a motive, but only one choice changes everything.
Subscribe to Crime Loom and join us as we unravel